Tim Walz is the worst governor in the entire United States of America. Sorry, CJ, it is not Gavin Newsom. It is Tim Walz. He is the very, very worst. And so, hello, welcome to Contramundum. I'm Andrew Isker, and with me, as always, is the star of the show, CJ Engel. CJ, how do you feel not having the worst governor in America?
Feels good. I'm still bottom five, but Newsom's terrible, but he's not as pathetic. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain like waspy, like it's really bad. He's like definitely on the left, but he's not like a pathetic person as an individual. You know what I mean?
Well, he's somebody that, I mean, he's evil and horrible and awful. Yeah. Like, we're not going to sing his praises, but he's somebody that you look at and seems it like deserves to be in a position of power. Like, he's a natural elite, right? Mm-hmm. He comes from that caste, and it's just unfortunate. Of course, he is an evil, demented sicko. But Tim Walz is just is a nothing, right? You know, he's horrible.
Benjamin Braddock.
Yeah.
He said he thinks that Newsom's one of those guys that like whoever's paying him the most, he'll just do that. Yeah. So he thinks that like Newsom can be bought back to the right.
I don't know if I agree with that assessment, but I hope he's right.
But Walz is like, he's committed to like all the agenda things.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, this is the thing, like he is this, he's a school teacher, right? And dyed in the wool. Like there are some, I know we have a few, public school teachers that listen, we're not talking about them, right? The good ones flying under the radar, but he's like, when you think of the stereotypical public school teacher, right? Just a total lib, totally brain dead, right? That's him 100%. And he's just so terribly, so awful. We'll get into it in a few minutes here about exactly why he is so terrible. Stryker. We both CJ and I went on Joel's show and talked about it. We'll cover some of the same things here, but we'll go in a little more detail today.
One of the things I said on Joel's show is like, because we were talking about why Walz, right?
Yeah.
And I said one of the things they wanted to do with him was totally gaslight white America, to say that like there's no war on whites, there's no it's all, we like the neighborhood dad feel, like that's totally cool with us, and that's like a major reason why they chose him. And then like 3 hours later on CNN, that's what they were going with. Yeah. Like he's America's dad, like he's
the narrative is set. Yeah.
It's so obvious that it's a massive gaslighting campaign.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, because I mean, you look at Kamala, and she is this. I mean, one, neither of her parents are American, right? She is like, she has no connection to American history or heritage, whatsoever. I mean, she spent half her childhood in Canada, right? And so like, there's that, and just the agenda that she has had as the Attorney General of California, and then later as senator, right. The whole DEI thing, all of the anti-white racism, all of that, like that's her, like, to a T. That's, I mean, as much as she is not just a blank slate cipher. That's what she represents. Whereas, she's not American. A case could be made, Euclid, that she is not actually a citizen of this country. We'll see. Well, maybe that'll go to the Supreme Court, the 14th Amendment debate. But nevertheless, like, Walz is inserted there, like you said, to reassure everyone. That's why Breshar, the Kentucky governor, was in the running, for the same reasons, right? Oh, we want to reassure, right, normie, middle class America that we'll put one of you in here, right? That's the entire point. But when you look at Walz and what he's done in the state of Minnesota, DEI was his biggest. He had this stupid commie phrase, one Minnesota, and it was just, all right, we're going to bring up all of Ilhan Omar clones and all of these, hideous freaks like that one Senator Leah Finke, who has a deeper voice than you and I combined, probably. And like people like that, just this horrid assortment of freaks, right? It looks like something out of a very insensitive carnival from 100 years ago, right? Just that's
Yeah.
what he did. This is one Minnesota, right? This is big agenda. And like his whole administration, especially the second term, has been all DEI all the time,
Hmm.
right? Especially after the Floyd riots, everything he did there. I mean, we could talk about that too. Being here on the ground as it was happening. I mean, the whole context of all of it, of course. Um, all of my neighbors and friends, we were not allowed to leave our homes except to go to the grocery store, right? Or if you had a job where you were an essential worker, right, which was like half of jobs. But um, right, if not, legally you're supposed to stay inside your house. And if you didn't, if you like went out or if you had friends over, right, if somebody is parked in your driveway, right, at the same time the Floyd riots were going on, right, if you had like two or three cars in your driveway, well, there was a hotline that Tim Walz set up for your neighbors to inform
See,
on you.
that's crazy. Like, did you actually experience that where you are?
In Wasika, no.
Not really. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
right. The sheriff put up a Facebook post because somebody threw a big party, like
Yeah.
wagging his finger. Don't do this, guys. But we didn't. Nobody ratted on each other here.
Yeah.
But it certainly did happen, in the Twin Cities.
That's. I don't think Newsom did anything like that.
No,
I
I,
wasn't
I
really paying
maybe not.
attention,
Yeah,
but
it was horrible. I mean, we did have businesses. I mean, I had friends whose businesses, they had bars and restaurants and things. When he turned down the dials on the restrictions and opened up bars and restaurants. Well, one, you had to wear a mask into the restaurant. The host takes you to your table, and then you can take your mask off, right? And if you didn't do that, right, if everyone's like, this is stupid, like that's absolutely absurd, it's ridiculous, uh you would get informed on.
yeah.
And they would have undercover people go to people's restaurants to hit them and find them. They're like, all right, this is a warning, we're gonna give you a fine if you don't do that. So I'd go back to the same restaurant in my town. They're like, now they got posters everywhere, and they said, yeah, the state police, the state health department came in here undercover and caught us, so now we have to abide by it. I mean, it's just absurd stuff like that. And then he goes on, right, when he's giving his kind of acceptance speech this week, and it's like, we care, mind your own business. That's what we say here. And it's like, no, no, you don't. Right. Oh yeah. I mean, if you want to, if a 14-year-old wants to murder her baby, then I guess we have to mind our own business. Parents have to mind their own business now. But when it comes to, just walking around, trying not to catch the common, a weaponized common cold, well, guess what? We mind that business very much. We care about
Well,
that.
it's important to realize too. It's important to remember that it's not hypocrisy. It's culture war.
Yeah.
Like it's the state setting out its agenda, its priorities. It recognizes that it alone has the foundational, it alone generates what it wants the culture to be. So it
Yeah.
tells you what things are evil in society, which are getting along with other Americans, and which things are good, which is human sacrifice,
Yeah.
changing the sex of your children. Like these are the things that that has at its priority scale. So it's not really like hypocrisy. It's deconstruction is what it is. It's
Yeah.
deconstruction and reconstruction. It's
Yeah.
culture war, and this is part
Yeah.
of what the state's agenda is in this very late stage of the American empire.
Yeah, I mean the point here, Euclid and the voters reelected Walz overwhelmingly. The problem wasn't Walz, but the voters. I mean, yes and no. I mean, one of the problems is in Minnesota, right? This is why, this is why I'm leaving this place. Is the state GOP in Minnesota is horrible. It's abysmal, and they in the 2022 gubernatorial campaign, right? Scott Jensen was the candidate, and well, one of the things that happened was the Dobbs decision came down, and the GOP across the country was not prepared for it at all. Immediately, because the campaign initially was we are going to run on what Tim Walz did in 2020, both with lockdowns and with the riots. And that was going to be the centerpiece of the entire campaign. And then the Dobbs decision happens, and they're able to dominate the narrative that the election is about abortion. And so they're able to drive massive turnout in Minnesota for that reason. And so what do we have now? We had, state GOP and the gubernatorial candidate, the entire time he's on the defensive. He's explaining his position and nuancing it and all of these things after the fact. After, before Dobbs happened, he was like, yeah, I'm against abortion 100%. Same GOP playbook where they never expected Roe versus Wade to be overturned so they could, pretend to care about it. And Dobbs gets overturned. And now he's, caught with his pants down, right? He has to defend his past statements, from weeks earlier, and now explain them away and nuance them and everything else, when that was the issue that was driving the election. So they were able to drive turnout in the Twin Cities, especially for that reason. Whereas, he might have won if that hadn't have been the issue. The other thing is he didn't campaign aggressively even there. Like, okay, if that's the narrative, right? Tim Walz is awful. Like he wants zero restrictions whatsoever on abortion. Right? You could make that argument. Like he wants babies to be halfway out of the womb and you still be able to kill them. This is an extreme. This guy is sick, right? They never did that, right? All they did was play defense, and so it was a disaster of a campaign. It was so bad, and the state GOP in general is completely feckless, right? They put up zero resistance whatsoever. This is why, the story about Walz, right? How I carried weapons in war, and I don't want those weapons on the streets, right? He's able to say that kind of stuff, and the entire time, everyone knew he never went to Iraq. He never went to war, even though he claims that he did. That's a pretty big deal. I mean, we're at the point now where he might get bounced from the ticket just over that controversy. And
no, you really think?
I don't think he is. I don't think he's going to.
The media is too powerful.
The media is covering it up, and that's the media in Minnesota is the same way.
It's not just that they're covering it up, but like, it doesn't matter what the facts say. Yeah. What the media says is literally what drives narrative formation in this country.
Yeah, they create reality for people.
They really do. Yeah. I mean, it's not an exaggeration. Everything that our entire perception of the world around us is generated by the media. And sometimes you and I forget how much power they have because we don't care. And we also recognize that it's all lies anyways. But like for most suburban, like middle-class America, their entire perception of the world scene is shaped by the TV box. It's really surreal. It's something that like you read about in dystopian books, but it's not something that's coming down the pipeline. It's already here, and it's been this way since the 80s or 70s and 80s.
Well, I mean, it honestly, you think about these things, and you think about like the ancient world, right? The old covenant world. It was an enchanted world, right? Where reality was created by dark forces that are imperceptible. And we live in a world like that, right? Where they're able to manufacture reality for everyone, right? Mm-hmm. It's wild. But that's the way that modern mass media, right? That's what they do, of course. But at the same time, that generation that was literally formed by television from cradle to grave, a lot of it's going away. Like it really is a phenomenon of the boomer generation, but it's not exclusive to them, right? I mean, our generation too is the same way. We'll believe things like there's maybe a larger segment of our generation that doesn't fall for it, but
but we fall for other things. I mean, we have our own version of it. The TikToks and the not Twitter, but like the TikToks and like just the entire social media, like that is an actual problem. It's not just a boomer critique of Gen X or Gen Z or whatever. Like it is a problem too. There is much more radical narratives being shaped within the social media environment.
Oh yeah, I mean, like TikTok is able, one, it's what the question always is like, what what does the algorithm want people to see?
Mhm.
Right. So that the algorithm is what drives, I mean, on YouTube, everywhere else, like that's what drives things. Right.
Mhm.
If Google wanted us to have 1 million subscribers and everyone to, listen to what we have to say, right? They could. We would just show up on the homepage every, like, that's why is Mr. Beast, like, where did that guy come out of nowhere? Like, they drove it behind the scenes.
Mhm.
They wanted that guy to be popular and his weirdo freak show friends to be household names, right? That's, yeah. So it isn't. So mass media like didn't go away. It's maybe a little bit more decentralized in some ways, but those things like the major media companies certainly are. And even
Well,
X,
it's
even X
funny
can be
though.
this way, right?
Like, but remember the early stages of the internet? Like, remember how it was such a wild west, and you could get
Yeah.
any. I mean, there's things because you and I are the first generation that was really into the internet, right? But like, there were things in the early days of like forum posting and chat boards and all that stuff. Like, this is where like people like Moldbug and others came
Mm-hmm,
from. Like,
mm-hmm.
there were
BAP. Yeah.
there were videos and leaks on there that have shaped you and I's perception of power struggles that
Yeah.
are no longer available. Like you and
Yeah.
I remember having this conversation with others, but like we've seen videos of like Hillary Clinton. These are like Alex Jones type videos that we've seen them, and we can
Mm-hmm.
no longer find them no matter how much searching we do.
Yeah.
So I think that the internet is decentralized in some ways, but it's also been really heavily like there's been sort of a counter push on the decentralized aspect of the internet. Like it's really hard to find things now. Like I don't know if you've
Yeah.
experienced this, but like you swear you saw something years ago and you've searched in every different
Mm-hmm.
search engine and combination of words and you just cannot find it. It's really creepy.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. I mean, there are several times this has happened to me where I'm like, I found this thing on Google, and I have people in the chat are really like, don't use Google, but you're right. But I found it like 3 weeks ago, first thing that came, and now it's gone.
Yeah.
Right. Or things, yeah, from like 4 or 5 years ago. I'm like, oh, I remember this article is really good, and I can't find it anywhere. Right. I'll use Yandex,
Mhm.
and can't find it
Mhm.
anywhere at all. It is wild, right? And some of it is just like if you use Twitter, X, that's very ephemeral, right? It's
So
hard to find things
a good
by
example of
design.
this is like one of the this takes me back to my libertarian years, but the best writer for antiwar.com was Justin Raimondo, right? So like his long
Yeah,
essays have just like every other word is a link, right?
yeah,
If
yeah.
you go back to those, you can't find the things that he was linking to, even if you copy and paste it into
The time
the
machine. Yeah,
time machine. You
yeah,
can't find
yeah,
it. It doesn't exist anymore. Like the
yeah.
entire history of like proof of like the like weapons of mass destruction being a complete fraud. Some of the like proof that he was used to link to, it's just not even on the
It's
internet
gone.
anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I mean,
crazy.
that's the thing. I remember years ago, maybe 10 years ago, Gary North, made
Yeah.
a prediction, and he's like, "Yeah, YouTube is this great repository of human knowledge. Like these things are going to be on here for 10,000 years. It's so wonderful. Rest in peace, Dr. North." But I don't think he anticipated. Right? He was thinking of internet pre 2016. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the
He
pre
was
20
too post mill.
yeah, the pre 2016 internet was what got Trump elected in
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
2016,
For
right?
sure.
And some of that's back a little bit with Musk on Twitter. Like you can, it's opened up a little bit more. It's still not quite where it was, and I don't think it ever will be. Um, but yeah, I notice that all the time, right? You constantly have to fight against um the idea, right, that in the back of your head that there are forces trying to shape your perception of reality
Hmm.
all day long, all the time, and it's of course it's very disconcerting. Right? Yeah, yeah, like Josh here, right? Revisionist history happening before, like all the time, like we just look at the stuff with Walz, right? Going back to that, they could shape that narrative, right? They could say, well, Actually, anyone who ever put on a uniform is a combat vet. They'll just change the definition of
Mhm.
combat vet, right?
They change definitions all the time.
Yeah, they'll just say, yeah, he was a combat vet, right? They'll just do that, and everyone
Yeah.
will just accept it.
Mhm.
That's what they do. But I bet at the same time, I think the controversy does have legs in a way that it didn't in Minnesota. Like I shared a video yesterday on Twitter of the gubernatorial campaign in 2022 in Minnesota, where WCCO, the CBS station here, very far left, even for local news. They they had Scott Jensen on at the state fair, and had a live feed where he's talking to them, and he starts to say how the media, you guys, are totally in his pocket, right? You cover for him all the time. He's refusing to debate. Uh, you're on the side of his campaign, and the feed just stops. The feed just dies. They
Mhm.
shut down the feed of Scott Jensen criticizing them and Walz, and like that's how they operate. And the guy from one of the main guys in Walz's staff became the manager, the CEO of the Star Tribune, the biggest newspaper here, right? Which is also what shapes people's reality in Minnesota, right? The media here is even more intensely uh, creating fictional reality for people in this state than the media at large in the United States, right? It is wild.
This comment's important. So like I totally agree. Like on Twitter, we always like whenever we reflect on something, we're always asked for proof, citations,
Source.
right?
Yeah.
But this is a really important, like, trust your instinct, trust your gut, trust your own pattern recognition, the formation of everything that you've like grown up with. That's more valuable and
Yeah.
trustworthy than anything you're going to find online. Like that's always something that's this actually leads into the immigration
Usually,
topic.
well, yeah. Let me
Okay.
talk about that for just a moment. Yeah, I want to get to the immigration topic because it's it leads into all of what we've been talking about. But usually it is true. Like, so the Canadian school hoax,
Hmm.
right? You and I've never been. I mean, I've never been to Canada. Well, the last time I was in Canada was when I was like 2 years old, right? So I've never really been to Canada, despite living so close. And so I've never been to the mass graves, so called, to see if they're real or not. I've never talked to a Canadian about those things. But as soon as I saw the story, I was like, that can't be true. That's
Yeah.
got to be fake,
Yeah.
right? Whereas certain Davenant guys like Stephen Wedgeworth, who was a pastor in Vancouver at the time, writes all these articles about how it's this great, horrible sin of the Canadians and we have to repent of this and all.
Hmm.
Like he bought it, right? Bad instincts, right? Bad instincts. The Floyd stuff, right? I see the Floyd thing happen on Memorial Day. It's in my Facebook feed of people I went to high school with. Everyone losing their minds over like, oh, the police murdered a guy, and I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, there's got to be more to this story, right? I'm
Yeah.
not just gonna buy this. Nah, let's see the toxicology report, right? Immediately, that's what I start thinking. Like, there's got to be more. Like, the cops are just gonna kill a guy, right? And I mean, just on and on, all these different things. The only one where my instincts messed me up, and maybe this happened to you too, CJ. I can't remember if it did, but in like December and January of 2020, right? I'm seeing these stories online of this weird disease in China that's happening. And I'm getting a little freaked out about it. I'm like, what if that, people are getting welded in their apartment buildings, stuff like that. I'm thinking like, oh, this is bad. And the thing that messed my instincts up the most is the media, right? The media is saying, right, if you're worried about this, you're probably racist against Asian people, right? So I hear that, and what do my instincts tell me? This is a big deal. Like if it were really this deadly thing that's going to kill all of us, they would deny it, right? And they're
Hmm.
denying it. So I went out and bought masks. I started buying food and water, like you getting ready. And for like a week or two, they had me, right? They totally, as soon as they turned on a dime and they're like, then they start freaking out about it. I'm like, all right, I got. That's it.
So
That's
I
it.
I never fell for the COVID stuff because I was already on
You
this
can't
like
use that word, you know.
oh sorry. I was already on the trajectory of V word denial.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah,
was already like really into like oh that whole scientific theme. Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
avoided doctors,
yeah.
hospitals. So like my first instinct was yeah, it's all fake. Like so I never
Mhm.
really fell for it, maybe for different reasons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is good. Right. Yeah, my instincts. Eggs are delicious and you should eat them. Complete vindication. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Food is a huge one.
Yeah.
Food is a massive one where it's like you get told butter is bad for you, eggs are bad for you, steak is bad for you. You know what's good for you? Soybean oil. Right.
Mhm.
No, like if you just believe the opposite of what they tell you, uh, you're going to be pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Right. That's so much of this stuff is like instincts have to drive it. And I do think that like they manipulated a lot of people online, a lot of the, online, right. Um, with our instincts in early 2020.
Mhm.
Like they understood that we, these comments are getting me. I don't know if you see it in the feed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about every theory about Tim Walz. But yeah, the let me read this comment here from Euclid. Yeah, he's do you want to read this comment from Euclid about Hegel? What do you
Which one?
right? We
You're
both
looking
seem
at
to think that the opinions of the masses conform to what the elites tell them. That isn't just false, but it's a view central to Marxism. For the right and the left, this comes from Hegel, right?
yeah, so this is I think he and I always go he's always commenting in Twitter and on here and stuff. He seems to believe that there's this organic aspect to it, like where like idea generation comes from below. Whereas, yeah, I believe it comes from the elites. I don't think that's Hegelian, although I am a historicist. Like I am a quasi-Christian, not a quasi-Christian, but I am a quasi-historicist, Christian historicist. I'm not a Hegelian in
Yeah,
ultimate ways. But I do think a lot of this comes down from power, and I think that
yeah,
that's the structure of mass narrative formation. And I do think that people adopt the overall zeitgeist of those who come from above. Yes, I do believe that. I also don't think that that's necessarily Hegelian. I think it's very Augustinian. I think it's
yeah,
very consistent with what the Reformed taught, what Luther taught. I'm not an individualist, and I don't believe that individuals come to their opinions on rational inquiry or anything like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I
I
think
don't.
that they
Yeah,
need elites that help guide them for sure. And I don't think that's Hegelian. I think that Edmund Burke and
hmm
the Anglo Anglican tradition believes the same things.
yeah,
So yeah, it's very anti Enlightenment for sure. It's very quasi historicist, but I don't think it's necessarily Hegelian.
yeah. His follow up here. This is good. This is a good conversation. Right. The actions of the elites matter, but what I get from both of you is that it's almost deterministic, as if it all comes mechanistically from the
I don't
elites.
know why it has to be. I don't know why it has to be mechanistically. I don't know why it
No,
has to be.
or I don't think it's deterministic either. Like people, you. So one of the previous comments that he made is like people have their lusts, right? They want to do bad things,
Hmm.
right? And the elites manipulate those things, right? They clearly do, right? Why did they push, right? In my own state, like why is are good drugs like nicotine, taxed so highly, but they're making it easier and easier and easier to get THC and pot, which is horribly destructive, like sociologically, right? It and on the individual level, like it makes you a fat, stupid loser,
Hmm.
right? Like, um, why do they want why do they want that? Why do they do that? Right? They know people want those things. They know people want this something that helps them check out from the world and makes them less productive and everything. They they want that for people, or it's useful for them, for their ideology, for their grip on power, um, and and everything else. Look at it like abortion, right, or pornography, or all the vices, that they choose to push, yeah, they're manipulating people's lusts and their sins and things that the evil they want to do. But it isn't as though entire societies have always, like, people have always sinned and always had lusts, right? That has always existed in human history. What I think is unique in our, in our context is, um, ordinarily you would have elites that would want to maintain a society, would want it to continue functioning properly, and ours don't. Ours are more than happy to just sell off the equity and burn through all of it. Right? That's, I mean, it's a revolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
The slow burning revolution, but it's a revolution. They want to destroy, and that's like fundamentally what they're about. So it's not as though it's deterministic, but I mean, just look at the example. I mean, look at the example of gay marriage in Obergefell. I always go back to this one, that California in, was it 2008 or 2012? The 2008. You tell me if I'm
Yeah, I
wrong.
think so.
Proposition,
Yeah.
Proposition 8.
I
Yeah.
think it was, yeah.
And it passed like 60% majority in the state of California, huge margin. And then 7 years later, the entire country is pro gay marriage, where even like 60% of GOP voters are pro gay marriage. Right?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen like organically. It isn't like all sorts of people woke up one day and decided, nah, we've been mean to gay people and now we want to be nice to them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
No, it was a top down change, right?
Yeah.
Determined by I mean, all these things are. And so, and what do they do? Like, they want to manipulate things. They want to manipulate people to give us over to our own vices, to aid their revolutionary aims.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's the same thing with like Christianity. Why did Christianity become so hegemonic in the Western mind? Because the elites had chosen that direction, and things were, the cultural patterns, and habits and norms and mores, they all trickled down. You don't realize the importance of like, even someone like Michelangelo being hired to produce what he did. That trickled down into the hearts of millions of Westerners over time. Like those things that when you close your eyes and you picture like the Western culture, what you're seeing with your eyes closed in your imagination is the product of elite decisions. Like culture is doubt. You inherit something that came from above. I mean, this is something that actually, if you want more on this, I recommend the work of like Christopher Dawson, who recognizes the fact that these, like the culture, our social imaginary is the result of the elite's decision making, and like that's just how it's been for over 1,000 years.
Yeah, and I mean the point, he says, well, Christianity became hegemonic in the Western mind because it's true. Well, yes, but it's no longer hegemonic. That doesn't mean it's not true.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But also in the Far East, other philosophies were hegemonic, and none of them are true. Like Taoism, like those things came down and percolated out and were digested by the Asian populations, and it had nothing to do with how true they were. It had to do with the fact that they were hegemonic.
Yeah, precisely. Well, back to the topic again. That's a good conversation. The rabbit trail is always the point. It's worth. You're not going to get that anywhere else, right? Discussion on these things. But as far as Walz goes, and I've said this, many times in many different places, but he inherited a state when he became governor that was, this moderately purple state, right? It was always kind of liberal, right? In terms of like, it had higher taxes, things like that. It was, labor laws, all of that stuff that, 100 years old tradition, right? Democratic Farmer Labor Party, all of the progressive era stuff that happened here. But it was never like far left, right? As we understand it, right? It never was like that. It was just kind of your mainstream run of the mill liberals, right? That were here. And what he did after 2022, when the DFL took over both houses, right? So they finally had the state Senate. Normally what happens, and they had it by like a 1 or 2 vote margin, right? And normally what happens when you have a slim, tiny margin like that, you pass a couple agenda items, right? Just a few, because your mandate isn't massive. And what did they do? They did everything on their laundry list, right? Everything they wanted, other than, and this is a good point from Yellow Moth, right? Minnesota was all pro-gun Democrats. Yes, very good point. The only thing they didn't get away with was gun control. That's the only thing. Everything else, all the trans stuff, boom, one of the first bills passed. The very first bill they passed was the abortion bill, right? They passed every single thing that they wanted, and because they said we don't care, right? They're thinking in their head, we're going to win every election from here on out, so it doesn't matter, right? That's what it means. And why are they going to win every election from here on out, Mr.
Yeah.
Engel? Why?
Yeah, I mean, you change the demographics, you win the war. That's
Yeah.
that's the plan. That brings us back to the gaslighting thing. Like,
Yeah.
this is where, when you talk about immigration, and I've talked about this on Twitter a lot. Go back to your hometown. Go back to the places where you were born, and the entire thing has been re-terraformed. There's like, you don't recognize the behavior, the style of the people there anymore, and you're not supposed to talk about it, but it's because of immigration. You
Yeah.
know that our country is being completely transformed into a new America. In every city, every major area, unless you grew up, in a really small town, rural area or whatever, but for the most part, people are going back home and they don't recognize it anymore. Why is that? People know instinctually, they can see the patterns, they lived and grew up in it. They know that immigration is changing the face of America. And do you have a source on that? Do you have a source?
Source?
Like, no,
No.
I know what I grew up with. You can't gaslight me. It's ingrained deeply within me. And I know that our America today is not the America of the past, and there's
No.
no progress. It's digression. It's invasion is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And here in Minnesota, what has happened is, starting in the 19, I remember being in junior high school, and there are these two kids that, were in our class, and they were from a different country, right? They're from, we didn't even know where, but one of them, right, it was a boy and a girl, they're brother and sister, I believe. And she wore this like thing on her head, and his name was Muhammad. And then the next year there were like 30 or 40 kids just like them in my school, and I only had like 200 kids in my graduating class, 250. um and my senior year, it was like a quarter of our graduating class were from Somalia in my town. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, what happened in my county is the county welfare office tightened things up, made it just marginally more difficult to get things, and they all left, almost all completely gone. Right, they went to other places. Yeah, Wasika was that big, not anymore. Now we're down to 9,000 people in the town, and the classes are like under 200. But and our town has died. All the industry in our town is gone. Right, that's the other thing. Right, I mean, it's both. It's mass migration, importing people from third world countries into Minnesota, and then also deindustrializing it. Right, all of these towns like mine had factories. Right, they had jobs here that were, lower middle class. Right, where a dad could support a family fairly comfortably on it, and those things are gone now. The population of my town has declined. Right, from in this last census, it was the first time the town's population has declined since the town was founded. Right, it went down by like 1,000 people, and that's happening all over the Midwest, all over the Rust Belt. All these towns are dying. Right, they used to be very productive. They used to have, moderate amount of wealth, and they don't anymore. And it's not accidental. Right, somebody made decisions to make America like this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's purposeful. Right, it goes back to the anarcho tyranny we were talking about in Minnesota, where, right, I had to be locked in my house. Right, I had to wear a mask if I wanted to go anywhere. But rioters, right, they're allowed to go. They were allowed to go outside, not even wear a mask. They didn't have to wear masks. It was great. Congregate in large, thousands. because you know racism is also a public health crisis. So they had to, that goes over the disease that was rampaging through the country. Right? It's just obvious, like a narco tyranny, right? They want to reward their friends, punish their enemies. We were the enemies. They want to hurt normal American people. We want to punish them. We want to send all of their jobs to another country, and we'll import foreign people for them to have to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what happened to Minnesota. Right? That's what happened here, and everyone here was too afraid of being called racist to say anything about it, to raise any concern whatsoever. Right? Well, they could be just as American as you or me. And it's like, no, you look at Ilhan Omar and all of her people, they have zero interest whatsoever in becoming American. Right? We're not even, I mean, we could go dig deep into Ellis Island and all of those things, right? And be critical of it. But at some level, those people wanted to assimilate and become American, right? They wanted to come here to become American people. Many of them, maybe not all. But the Somalis and the various other peoples from third world countries that have been imported to the United States in the last 30 years, they have zero interest in being American at all, right? They remain part of their country, part of their culture, part of who they are.
Yeah, and it's not only that. A lot of them are radicalized so that America is this terrible place that needs to be reconstructed. So it's actually like they have a spirit of resentment and they have a spirit of revenge about them, and that they're getting back Westerners for years of colonialism or what have you. Like, this is part of the new left. The third worldism is what Amy Wax from Pennsylvania School of Law, she calls it third worldism. And it's like this ideology of it's this like counter revolution of the third world against the West. Nobody talks in terms like that, but that's the basic thesis of like Camp of the Saints and stuff, that it's all about revenge. And that's an important element too. They have, not only are they not interested in Heritage America, but they actually want to actively and purposefully liquidate it.
Yeah. Like here, for instance, I mean, I remember 2018, right? When I moved back to Minnesota, this is when Ilhan Omar was running for Congress for the first time. And I remember, telling my friends, back home here, that like, it is astonishing and a travesty that this woman is running for Congress. And I'm like, and what do you mean, Andrew? I'm like, this woman hates America, right? She's brought here, like, her family was part of the ruling regime and they were all going to die in Somalia, right? So we literally save her life, bring her here. And at that point, her like pinned tweet on her Twitter profile in 2018 is that America is the most racist, misogynistic, evil country in the world, right? That was her. Like, she hates this place. And I'm told that, like, every day of her life here has been paid for by us, right? We provided everything for food, healthcare, education, housing, all of it, her entire life. And she resents us for it. She hates us. Right? That's not a person that is capable of assimilating and becoming American, right? It's preposterous. And people looked at me like, Andrew, I don't think you should be saying that. Right? I don't think that's okay. Like, that's the attitude people have in Minnesota. These are conservative people, right? That's the attitude people have in Minnesota is, we would rather be looted for every penny we have. We would rather have these people rule over us and punish us and destroy our country, our heritage, than for someone to think I might possibly be a bad person. Right? That's the attitude. So why has Minnesota become like it is? It's because people have zero will to fight. Right? They do. I mean, there are some, right? There's great people here, people I love, but they're few and far between. Very few and far between. It's easily demoralizing when you realize how isolated you are in desiring to fight for what is yours. Like my great grandparents came here. The town was still first being settled, and this was when the Sioux Indians slaughtered everyone in New Ulm, like an hour away. That's within living memory when they came here.
Yeah.
Right? And there's nothing but bare prairie everywhere. Like, they built things out of nothing in this place. And and I'm told that someone who got here 5 minutes ago is just as Minnesotan as me, right?
Right.
That no, no,
No.
no, 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 not at all. Not whatsoever. It's it is it's awful, and so the mass migration, like that's the point of it. It isn't just like, and they don't they basically say this too, right? And I mean, you look at the things that are happening in the UK right now. I mean, it's illustrative of the point that you're making. Right? They verbatim say this stuff, right? I mean, they have posters on the sponsored by the government in
Hmm.
the UK that say, like, we could come here because you came to our countries,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like this mass propaganda campaign telling them, well, if you just wouldn't have colonized and killed and raped and stolen everything, which is not what happened at all. Um, right. Then like that justifies us coming to your country and um, raping thousands of girls in Rotherham
Yeah.
or hacking people to death, right? Where the government
It's
does nothing about it.
yeah. I mean, Westerners are really susceptible to that type of argument,
Yeah.
and they
Steven
just
talks about that. Yeah.
yeah, we need to really just knock it off. It's not even worth entertaining, regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah.
I think obviously I think a lot of that's overblown, but regardless of the circumstances, I keep saying I don't debate the meaning of American history with those that seek to liquidate it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not interested in a discussion about it.
Yeah.
I want like I'm you're my enemy. You're a foreigner. You don't belong here. I don't care
Yeah.
about like if it's revenge or if it's just or not just. You're not welcome to do it. Like that's
Yeah.
the extent of the argument, and I'm going to act politically to that end.
Yeah. Americans can discuss
Yes.
the Confederacy and slavery
Yes.
and things like that. People that love America and that this is
Yeah.
their place.
I
Right.
love Union versus Confederacy arguments. I think it's a lot of fun. But when I'm debating people from a completely different nation, I claim
You
it
see this?
all. I belong to all of them.
Do you see this, CJ? Trump's jet had to make an emergency landing an hour ago due to mechanical failure. Second attempt. When you saw, like, did you see the video of Brazil?
No, I didn't see it.
The plane that just literally fell out of the sky.
Really?
You can guess who manufactured that plane. Um, let me look and see. Yeah, you keep talking. I'll
Well, Google
scroll the
this.
internet. Yeah.
Well, I think my point's been made, but I like. I mean, we could talk about this too. Like, I mean, this plays into our question about whether Kamala has something special up her sleeve. Like, because I don't think that they're gonna let Trump just walk into the White House again. Like, do you think that they're gonna try again? What are you seeing?
Uh, Trump's plane is diverted to Billings, Montana, rather than Bozeman due to a mechanical issue. Secret Service is reportedly doing a sweep of the airport before Trump boards another private plane to Bozeman.
That's not a mechanical failure.
Man, like it's just, man, no.
Trust your instincts.
Exactly. Always trust your instincts. Like, no, I saw it. Like Jeremy Carl, he lives in Billings, I believe. No, not Billings. He lives in Bozeman area. And he's at the rally. He had to be there like 8 hours early. I mean, maybe it is an ordinary mechanical issue, hydraulic leak. I mean that those things happen, right? Those things happen. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I think. I mean, we should go back to. It's been almost a month now since we were sitting in your rental car with Paul Gottfried and Stephen Wolf, and we got a text from my wife about the attempt on Trump's life. I mean, I keep thinking about it, man. That the one building in the entire place that was ideal for a sniper just happens to be left unguarded. Right? Did you see the body cam video yesterday
Oh,
that got released? They had zero communication with the Secret Service. They're trying to get the Secret Service to act. They thought the Secret Service had that building covered. This is from the local police. Like the local police are kind of blowing the whistle on what happened. Right? It's not a coincidence, right? Think about that, right? He does hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rallies over the last 8 years. And the very first time somebody makes an attempt, they're able to get that close. Like, come on. And that the gun was there already the day before for him to get.
Oh, is that what they
Like,
said?
yeah, he apparently buried it
Oh, wow.
in the grounds,
They
and
didn't do a sweep? They didn't do
they
a
never
sweep?
found it. Yeah,
Wow.
I mentioned because I remember I went to see George W. Bush when I was 18 years old in Rochester, Minnesota. And it was at a baseball field in Rochester, like the minor league field there. And I remember thinking there, maybe just in my, I guess it's long, but you have to be there 5 hours early, right, to get a good seat. We stood the whole time, but went there. And I'm thinking, man, if I was an insane maniac that wanted to kill the president, I would just bury it. I would just bury a gun.
Wait, how old were you?
18.
Oh, okay.
I was just sitting there thinking, I'm like, because I was just thinking about security. Because at the time, I loved George Bush back in 2004, like every young, rural Minnesota guy did.
Uh-huh.
And I'm obviously not thinking I would want that. But I'm just thinking about his safety and security and things like that. And I'm seeing the Secret Service all around, and they were all at that time. These are all like 6'3" jacked dudes, right? That are surrounded. There weren't any chubby ladies around there. It was all they looked like NFL linebackers. And I'm thinking, man, because I was like 10 feet away from him talking, and I'm thinking, man, if I had come here a couple days earlier and just buried something, I would be like this. How are they able to keep him safe? I was getting worried, right? How do they keep him safe? And I assumed, right, they run a metal detector along the ground and everything to find anything that might be buried. But apparently they didn't in this case, right? Apparently they didn't in 2024 in Butler, Pennsylvania. It is incompetence only goes so far, and like incompetence is like the perfect conditions for plausible deniability too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we're just really incompetent. Whoa, how about that? It's like that's the perfect thing. You have an out there. I think, yeah. How do they keep him safe? He obeys the deep state. Safest thing to do. I don't think. If he did, and this is an argument CJ and I go back and forth on, right? If he did, would they be trying to kill him?
Well, there's factions in the deep state.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he has one faction for sure.
Yeah. That's true. He does. How powerful they are, how central they are to the deep state. Yeah, I saw that Forms Respecter, the chubby gal. I think it's the same one. I couldn't really tell.
Yeah,
if
what's
it's the
going
same
on?
one. Did you see that the video with Vance on the tarmac there?
Yes,
I saw that gal and I'm like, is that the same one? Did she get reassigned now to Vance? Right.
Man, if I was Vance,
It is her.
I'd be like,
man.
No, what? Give me someone else.
I know. It's man. It's a tough scene.
Hope you have your bulletproof vest.
That's right. That's right, man. It is. It's crazy. But he cannot have his own, or he has to have his own. So he cannot rely on the Secret Service, and I think he does at this point. He has to have his own security that is operating now. Right. It's yeah, exactly. Right. It doesn't matter if it's the same one. Right. It's even worse if there's multiple. Right. Right? It's even worse if they got a fleet of these gals. No, it's not good. But yeah, as far as this stuff goes, like I think there will be more attempts. Right. We've said that. I think we said that the day of, right, when we're just like reacting to it. They're not going to stop. Right. Why would they stop? No, I think, somebody way back earlier in the chat mentioned the Jamie Raskin video. Have you seen that yet? I think I brought it up when we were on Joel's recording.
What was it?
Right. Jamie Raskin just basically said that, well, because the Supreme Court isn't going to take up the 14th Amendment, and declare Trump ineligible as an insurrectionist, we're going to have to decertify the election at the House level. And
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
dude,
Like
if they do that,
I told you, man, like they're not going to just let this be like a regular election. It's not the world's changed. Everything's changed.
the world
I-
has
It,
changed. I can
that's
feel it in the water.
no, so yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like
Yeah.
they have tricks up their sleeves for days on this kind of stuff. Yeah, they could decertify it. All the arguments that the Trump team put together after the last round, the Democrats can use
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
decertification.
Yeah, Euclid's done arguing with us for now. So he has a good
This
question.
is a very Hegelian question, to be honest.
Now you're going to make him argue with us. But I think it's a good question. Right, what do you think the deep state hates the Trump the most over? Right, the fact that he will end the war in Ukraine, or
It
what?
could be Ukraine.
I think I go back to you mentioned Justin Raimondo, right, and so I go back to him, like the because we were both in our like libertarian days, right, in 2016, 2015. I certainly was, and I remember Raimondo was, yeah, he always called himself like never Trump, right, or anti Trump, right,
Mhm.
and so he's like, oh, I'm not really supporting him, but I hate the people that hate him,
Yeah.
right, and so he was very supportive of him in that way, and showed that like this is the most anti-war, anti-foreign policy establishment candidate
That's what it's about. It's
that
about
we
the
have
foreign
ever
policy.
had, at least in it, obviously Ron Paul much more so, but he was never going to get close. They're never going to let him get that close, and didn't have the ability that Trump does, and so on and so forth. But in terms of like a serious contender, obviously the most anti-war, most anti-regime candidate ever, and you have to understand that is the centerpiece of everything for
Yeah,
them.
it is.
Is it for the regime? It's not, trans, it's not gay marriage, it's not even abortion. It is foreign
It
policy.
really is.
End of the day, always,
Well,
because that's the thing that allows all the other stuff.
it is. Like the other stuff is just like sort of cultural humiliation, things. But like at the end
Yeah,
of the day, the American Empire was born in the post Nuremberg context,
yeah,
and therefore that's the lifeblood of the empire.
yeah,
Is they have to continue its West, like American expansionism. That's what it's about. And anyone that
yeah.
questions that, you don't even have to be anti-war. I don't even think Trump's anti-war. What he
No,
is, he dissents slightly from regime foreign policy agendas.
yeah,
That's why they hate him. I think that's the number one thing.
yeah. He's pro America. He's he's aggressively pro America
Well, he's
as
America
an
first.
individual. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and the other thing about him too is he's allowing people that have much more of a of an awareness about foreign policy into his circles. So like it's not even just about Trump. He's normalizing America first. That's
yeah,
unacceptable to the regime.
yeah. Because America has to be the global superpower that dominates every country on the planet, right?
Mhm.
That's the point. That's the point of the post-war regime. Is and you see this, like Paul brought this up when we were at the conference in Texas in the Q&A, and it's a great point. I keep going back to it again and again. That, right, you look at Germany today, and the Bundesrepublik is gone. Right? That, I mean, every culturally, right? Their identity as German is completely wiped out, completely wiped away. The AfD, their main support is in the former East Germany,
Yeah.
right?
It's
And
a very like world historically significant point that
yeah,
people need to sit and like contemplate that.
yeah, and it isn't like usually like you look at those. Sometimes it goes around, X now. The map of Germany, and like where, religiously, and it's like a big dark blot where like less than 10% Christian in East Germany. Like they're all atheists and agnostics there because the Soviet Union destroyed Christianity in East Germany. And West Germany, right, it's still not great. It's like 20, 30, 40 like percent in all the different districts and principalities, or former principalities. And yet, so it isn't even along like religious lines necessarily. right? And this is important to the entire like Christian nationalism discussion, because what the regime has done, what the post-war American empire has done in these places, is they have robbed them of their cultural and historic identity as a people. Right? You're not German anymore. You're just a generic individual, right?
Yep.
Part of the global community, right?
Yep.
That's what they've done in France.
That's a
That's what
very
they've done
American. That's
in
the
the
American
UK.
mentality. Yeah.
That's what they've done in Italy, right? Everywhere the American empire touched, that's what they've done. And this is why, right, places like Hungary and Romania and Poland and elsewhere, that are still not very Christian, right? They're still very secular, right? There's a resurgence of Catholicism in Poland, and in Hungary and Romania as well. But right, it's not where it was 150 years ago, right? But they still have their identity as a people, right? Poles are still Poles. Hungarians, Magyars, right? They still understand who they are as a people. And in the West, they don't. They're not allowed to. It's illegal to think of yourselves that way,
Yeah.
right? It's illegal to do that. And then the same thing, like okay, like Italy, ruled by Maloney. Um, yeah, but what's she allowed to do? Right? She gets elected to try to stop the all of the
Maloney's she's a
eh,
fake opposition.
yeah, it's a release valve for these
Yeah.
people. And this is like the argument, okay, maybe Trump is that too, right? That's always the thing we get. Maybe
I think
maybe
he is in terms of the meta structure of the regime and
yeah,
in the new American century. He's definitely part of the Nuremberg regime for sure.
yeah, yeah. And so all this is to say, right? Everywhere America has occupied for all intents and purposes, right? UK, France, Germany, Italy, these are occupied countries. They're occupied by the American regime, right? They, like the case in point, Germany, right? Germany, oh, yeah, like Angela Merkel, not great, obviously, right? But right, one of the best things that she did was open up to Russian oil and gas,
Mhm.
which decouples you from the United States. Right,
Right.
you're no longer entirely under their thumb. You're no longer totally dominated economically by the United States. Now you have a little more freedom to move, little more wiggle room. And what did the United States do? We destroyed the Nord Stream pipeline
Yep.
and cut Germany up, because as soon as Germany um,
Which is an act of
starts,
war.
oh yeah, against
It,
Germany, yeah,
yeah. It's if we were any other country, America would have sent troops in defense of human rights. You know.
yeah, yeah. Oh, exactly. Like we did that because we cannot, like we, not us, right?
Yeah.
The United States regime cannot allow the Germans to get out from under our thumb economically. And the second they do that, right, then they're free, and then they're able to say, no, we're not going to have, a million Syrians in Germany, a million Afghans in Germany. They all have to go back, right? Then the AFD, right, their party officials aren't going to get thrown in jail for posting migrant rape stats,
Mhm.
right? I mean that the right in Europe is illegal. Now you cannot be right. Like the most you're allowed to be is in like Great Britain is what's his name? Nigel Farage. That's as far right as you can go. And Nigel Farage,
I like Nigel.
I do too, but
Yeah.
like
No, I know what you mean. Yes. Yeah.
like
I agree.
publicly, the
Yeah.
furthest right he could be is like Bill Clinton in the 1990s.
Right. Oh, by the way, did you see that? Did you see the platform from the Democrat Party in the 1992? Did you see that going around today?
No, I didn't.
It was super funny. Like talking about like being tough on crime and closing the border and like all this stuff that's like, you know, these are the Democrat things that Democrats are running on in 1992. And if we said them today, it's like, oh, you're a fascist. You
You're
know,
fired.
it's
Yeah.
hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll get doxxed and you'll lose your job.
Anyways,
Yeah.
I gotta finish
Oh,
packing.
it's
You
5 o'clock. Yeah,
know,
I gotta get going too. It's been Yeah, we get going talking about the American regime, and we have a whole nother episode
I leave
right
on
there.
Tuesday, man. Like, so I'll
Oh,
next Friday I'll be driving into redacted Tennessee.
yeah, yeah. I
I
can't
can't believe
wait.
it.
I'm gonna be a few, 6 or 7 weeks behind you.
Yeah.
I'm doing everything I can right now to get the house ready to sell. So if anyone wants a house, give me a call. But
Yeah,
yeah,
if anyone
we
wants, you just made the case against Walls and the Somalis.
if you want to move here, though, go
The
ahead.
value of your house just went down, man.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, it hasn't. Unfortunately, not. There's plenty of people
Yeah.
that want to live here for some reason. But yeah, we're gonna keep on keeping on, and once we are in Tennessee together, we're gonna have to do this, more than once a week.
We're going to,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
the
gonna be, and I'm very excited to live stream election night.
yeah. It's gonna
We're
be
gonna be
hours.
we're
Yeah,
gonna be there all night if we have to.
yeah. It will be great.
There will be
We
no pipe bursting
No
without
pipe
our.
bursts, no ballot drop because we'll be live streaming. They can't do it if we're
We
live
can't do it.
streaming.
No,
They're not allowed.
we won't get away with it this time.
All right. Well, unfortunately, yeah, we both have to go, so there's no time for we're all going to make it here again. Once again here today. Maybe next time. But yeah, thank you all for joining us, for watching and listening here today. Keep an eye out for other stuff that CJ is going to publish. You're doing stuff with Chronicles. Maybe not while you're moving.
Yeah, it's a busy month, but I
Yeah.
will have much more time on the ground in a few
Good.
weeks. So.
Good. Well, yeah, for all of us, for CJ and for me, and for the entire Contramundum Nation. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, subscribe, share this. Thank you to the chat. It's always a pleasure. Great conversation as always with all of you guys and gals. There's a couple gals here today, so we don't want to not mention them too. It's like 99-1, but they show up. But thank you all. It is our great pleasure to spend every Friday afternoon with you guys, and we'll do it again next week unless we're all gone, unless nuclear war breaks out. But until then, right, all of you stay peacefully dangerous, and we'll see you next time.